She was sweeping the floor of the juice bar when it happened, pushing sticky pulp into a corner that never stayed clean. The mop bucket smelled faintly of oranges turning bitter. Noon light pressed through the glass, bright and careless, catching dust in the air. Myra kept her head down. She always did. People like her were meant to be invisible, to leave no ripple when they moved through a room. She counted tiles instead, small comforts, white squares with hairline cracks like veins. Her stomach was empty. It usually was. The bell over the door rang. Not the quick, impatient jingle of office workers, but a softer sound, weighted. Shoes that did not hurry. Myra felt it before she looked. A presence that bent the room, like gravity. The woman entered slowly, one hand on her belly, the other steadying herself against the doorframe. She wore linen, pale and loose, the kind that floated when she walked. Her face held a tired glow, skin stretched with a life growing underneath. Myra's chest tightened, sudden and sharp, like a remembered bruise. Behind her came the man. Tall. Still. His eyes moved the way accountants did, measuring value without appearing to. He scanned the room and saw nothing worth fearing. His gaze slid over Myra without stopping. That was normal. Myra wiped her hands on her apron and felt the old weight settle, the knowledge of her place. They ordered. The woman smiled apologetically, a reflex born of years of being watched. Something fresh, she said, voice low, careful. No sugar. Myra's hands began to shake. She reached for the juicer. The sound of it roared, drowning the room, but it could not drown the memory that surged up, uninvited. A kitchen years ago. A glass sweating on the counter. Her mother's hand, thin as paper, lifting it with trust. Myra swallowed hard. Her throat burned. She poured the juice into a tall glass. It glowed an impossible green. Too bright. Too eager. Her fingers tingled where they touched it. The woman watched, eyes soft, distracted, one hand resting on the curve of her stomach, thumb tracing circles as if reassuring someone unseen. Myra's heart began to pound. No, she whispered. The word barely left her mouth. It felt ridiculous, like trying to stop a river with a palm. The man checked his phone. The woman reached for the glass. Time slowed into something thick and cruel. Myra saw the woman's lips, the future in them, the trust. She saw her own mother's smile, right before everything broke. Don't, Myra said louder, and then louder still, the word tearing free. Please. Don't drink the juice. The room froze. The juicer clicked off, sudden silence ringing. The man looked up, startled, annoyance flashing across his face. The woman's hand stopped inches from her mouth. Her eyes met Myra's, and in them was confusion, and something else, a fragile openness. I'm sorry, Myra said, breath coming fast. I know I shouldn't say anything. But please. Don't. The man stepped forward. His voice was controlled, polite in the way that carried warning. Is there a problem with the drink? Myra shook her head. Tears pricked her eyes, hot and unwelcome. It's not the drink, she said. It's the leaves. The supplier. Sometimes they mix things. Things that look safe. Her words stumbled, clumsy, but the truth pressed behind them, desperate to be heard. My mother, she began, then stopped. The memory was a weight she could barely lift. The woman set the glass down. Slowly. Her hand trembled now too. What kind of things? She asked quietly. Myra closed her eyes. She smelled again the hospital, antiseptic and despair. She saw her mother's fingers slack on white sheets. Things that hurt babies, she said. Things doctors don't always catch in time. Silence spread, wide and aching. The man's face shifted, irritation giving way to something colder. He took the glass, lifted it, examined it as if answers might float to the surface. His jaw tightened. He did not drink. He set it aside. We'll take some water, he said, voice steady but altered, as if a note had cracked inside him. He slid a bill onto the counter, more than necessary. His hand lingered. The woman did not look away from Myra. Thank you, she said. Just that. But in it was something heavy, something that pressed on Myra's chest until she could hardly breathe. They left. The bell rang again. Myra stood alone with the discarded glass, green light fading as it settled. Her knees gave out and she sank onto a stool, shaking. She had done the wrong thing. She always did. Across the street, the man stood still on the sidewalk, the city rushing past him. He held his wife close, one hand splayed protectively over her belly. He looked back at the juice bar window, at the small figure inside, bent and trembling. For the first time in years, something inside him cracked open, quiet and irreversible. He did not sleep that night. The city hushed itself outside the windows of the penthouse, lights blinking out one by one, but sleep would not come to Aaron Vale. He lay on his back, staring at a ceiling so perfectly white it felt unreal, like something printed rather than built. Beside him, Lena breathed in shallow, uneven rhythms, one hand curled protectively over her belly even in sleep. He counted those breaths. Missed one. Started again. The juice sat in his mind like a stain he could not scrub away. The color. That unnatural green. The way the girl's voice had broken on the word please. He had heard fear before. In boardrooms. In courtrooms. In negotiations that decided the fate of thousands. This was different. This was personal. Untidy. Human. He slipped out of bed quietly and padded to the kitchen. Marble under bare feet, cold and smooth. He poured himself water and drank it too fast, some spilling down his chin. His hands were shaking. He noticed that with distant curiosity. Hands that had signed deals worth more than most lives could tally were shaking because of a girl with a broom. He thought of her eyes. Not pleading. Not accusing. Just urgent. As if she had been carrying that warning for a long time, waiting for the right moment to set it down. At dawn, he made a decision that surprised even him. He called his driver and cancelled the morning meetings. He left a message with his assistant that said family matter, which felt inadequate but true. He dressed without his usual care, skipping the cufflinks Lena loved, choosing an old jacket he had not worn in years. When Lena woke, he was sitting on the edge of the bed, elbows on his knees, head in his hands. She touched his shoulder. "Aaron," she said softly. "I need to go somewhere," he replied. He did not look up. "I need to see someone." She did not press him. She never did. That was one of the reasons he loved her. She only nodded, her thumb tracing slow circles on his knuckle, grounding him. "Be careful," she said. The juice bar smelled the same in the morning. Bitter citrus. Old wood. Myra was there again, scrubbing the counter with movements that felt too big for her small frame. She froze when he walked in. Recognition flashed across her face, followed immediately by fear. "I'm not here to complain," he said quickly, before she could shrink further. His voice sounded strange to his own ears. Too gentle. "I just wanted to talk." She nodded, eyes down, hands twisting in her apron. He noticed the rawness of her knuckles, the way her shoes were worn thin at the toes. Details he had never trained himself to see. They sat at a small table by the window. Sunlight fell between them, bright and unforgiving. For a moment, neither spoke. The silence stretched, not awkward but heavy, filled with all the things neither knew how to say. "You scared my wife," he said finally. Then he inhaled. "You might have saved her too." Myra swallowed. "I didn't want to," she said. "Scare her. I mean." "Why did you?" he asked. Not accusing. Just asking. She stared at her hands. "Because I didn't want another mother to," her voice trailed off. She shook her head once, hard. "It happened before. With the juice. With the leaves. My mother trusted someone. She was pregnant too." The words fell between them, fragile. Aaron felt something give way inside his chest. He had known loss, but it had always come wrapped in numbers, in contracts, in abstractions. This was different. This had a face. "She didn't die right away," Myra continued. "She just got smaller. Quieter. The baby didn't make it. Neither did she. Not really." Aaron closed his eyes. When he opened them, they burned. "I had the juice tested," he said. "After we left." Her head snapped up. "There was contamination," he said. "Low level. Legal, technically, but not safe. Not for someone pregnant. His voice broke on the last word. He did not bother to hide it. Myra let out a breath that sounded like a sob she had been holding for years. She pressed her fist to her mouth. I cried in the car, he admitted. The confession surprised him as much as it did her. I haven't done that in a very long time. She looked at him then, really looked, and for the first time he saw himself reflected not as a billionaire, not as a force, but as a man who was afraid of losing his family. I'm sorry, she said, though he was not sure for what. He reached into his jacket and placed a folded paper on the table. I want to help, he said. Not like charity. Like responsibility. She did not touch it. You don't owe me anything, she said. I know, he replied. That's why it matters. Outside, the city moved on, indifferent. Inside the small juice bar, something fragile shifted. Not hope exactly. Something quieter. Something that hurt. When Aaron stood to leave, Myra watched him go, the paper still untouched, the weight of her past and his future pressing down in equal measure. Lena did not tell anyone at first. She carried the moment inside her like a stone, heavy but grounding, the memory of the girl's voice pressing against her ribs whenever she breathed. Don't drink the juice. It echoed at odd hours. In the shower. In the quiet before sleep. In the waiting rooms that smelled like lemon wipes and fear. Her pregnancy had become a series of careful rituals. Warm water in the mornings. Slow walks in the evening. Hands on her belly, whispering nonsense words meant only for the life listening from inside. After the juice bar, those rituals sharpened, turned brittle. She watched everything she ate, every sip she took, with a vigilance that bordered on panic. Aaron noticed. He always noticed her silences before her words. At the clinic, the doctor frowned at a screen longer than necessary. The pause stretched. Lena felt her pulse in her ears. She reached for Aaron's hand without looking. He squeezed back too hard, then loosened his grip, apologetic even in fear. Everything looks fine, the doctor said finally, smiling in that professional way meant to soothe. But you did the right thing being cautious. Cautious. Lena tasted the word. It did not capture the truth. What she felt was gratitude edged with terror. Someone had seen her before she could see herself. Someone with nothing to gain. She asked Aaron to drive past the juice bar again. He did not question it. They parked across the street, engine idling. The windows were fogged from their breath. Inside, Myra moved slowly behind the counter, her shoulders rounded, as if she carried invisible weight. I want to talk to her, Lena said. Aaron hesitated. He had already crossed that line, gone back, spoken. He knew the danger of proximity, how it complicated clean intentions. But he nodded. He always did for Lena. Myra looked up when the door chimed and went pale. She braced herself, ready for consequences. Lena saw it, the instinctive flinch, and her chest ached. I just wanted to thank you, Lena said, before anything else could get in the way. Her voice was steady, but her hands were not. She placed them openly on the counter, palms up, a small offering. You didn't know me. You still spoke. Myra's eyes filled. I almost didn't, she whispered. I was scared. So was I, Lena said. I still am. They stood there, 3 women counting breaths between them. The world narrowed to the hum of the refrigerator, the distant traffic, the quiet life growing inside Lena that shifted, as if listening. I lost my mother, Myra said suddenly. The words came out flat, practiced. She was pregnant. I was there when it happened. I was 10. Lena felt something split open in her chest. Not pain. Recognition. I'm so sorry, she said, and meant it in the way that reached bones. Aaron watched them, a witness. He had always believed protection meant control, that safety could be bought, secured, enforced. Watching Lena lean toward Myra, listening with her whole body, he felt that belief loosen. Protection, he realized, could also be attention. Days passed. Tests came back clean. Relief should have settled in, but it didn't. Instead, something restless grew. Aaron began asking questions he had never asked before. About suppliers. About margins. About the thin places where legality and morality failed to overlap. The answers came easily. Too easily. He saw now how often he had chosen not to look. Late one night, he sat alone in his study, screens glowing softly. Reports stacked like quiet accusations. Names. Percentages. Acceptable risk. He thought of Myra's mother. Of Lena's steady breathing in the next room. Of the girl who had carried a warning for years. He closed his laptop and pressed his palms to his eyes. When he opened them, they were wet. He did not wipe them away. Across the city, Myra lay awake on a narrow bed, the folded paper still untouched in a drawer. She had not told anyone about the meeting. Some things felt too fragile for air. She rested a hand on her own stomach, empty but aching, and wondered if warnings ever truly ended, or if they simply passed from one quiet person to another. In the dark, both houses held their breath, waiting for something unnamed to arrive. Aaron resigned quietly. No press release. No farewell dinner. Just an email sent before dawn, careful and short, stepping away for personal reasons. The board panicked in private. The markets fluttered and settled. The world did what it always did when men like him shifted position. It adjusted. He did not tell Lena at first. He wanted to know if the decision could stand on its own, without being buoyed by her approval. He walked the city instead, streets he had never walked, past people who did not know his name and did not need to. The air smelled like rain and exhaust. He felt lighter. He felt terrified. When he finally told her, she listened without interrupting. She was sitting on the edge of the bed, folding tiny clothes with a slowness that felt ceremonial. When he finished, she rested her forehead against his arm and closed her eyes. "I'm glad," she said. 2 words. Enough. They visited Myra together one last time before the baby came. The juice bar was closing for the evening. Chairs stacked. Lights dimmed. Myra looked thinner. Tired in a way that went deeper than sleep. "I didn't take the money," she said quickly, as if confessing. Aaron nodded. He had expected that. "I didn't come to convince you," he said. Lena stepped forward and placed a small box on the counter. Inside was a simple bracelet, silver, unadorned. "For remembering," she said. Myra's hands shook as she accepted it. "I don't want to be brave," she said. "I just didn't want to be quiet." Later, after the baby arrived, after the long night of pain and breathing and fear that finally broke into sound, Lena held their daughter against her chest and cried without restraint. Not from relief alone. From understanding. How narrow the space had been between before and after. How easily it could have closed. Aaron stood at the window of the hospital room and watched the sky lighten. He thought of all the warnings he had ignored in his life. All the quiet voices drowned out by comfort. He promised himself he would never confuse silence for consent again. Months later, Myra stood in a different kitchen. Smaller. Cleaner. She was teaching a new girl how to wash the juicer properly, how to notice when leaves looked too bright, too eager. She wore the bracelet under her sleeve. She did not talk about why. Some nights, she dreamed of her mother. Not sick. Just standing in a doorway, watching. In the dreams, her mother never spoke. She only nodded, once, as if to say that the warning had finally landed somewhere safe. Aaron watched his daughter sleep and learned a new kind of vigilance. Not control. Attention. Listening. He cried sometimes still, quietly, when the house was dark. He did not mind the tears anymore. They felt like proof. One afternoon, Lena drank a glass of juice on the balcony. Orange. Simple. She paused before lifting it, smiling faintly at the memory that still hovered between them. Then she drank. The city moved below them. Somewhere across it, a girl closed a shop and locked the door, carrying a small light forward, one careful step at a time.